The cost of entry into this business is basically a good idea. My name is Alex Graham. I was the co-founder of Wall-to-Wall Television and ran Wall-to-Wall for just over 25 years. I didn't really think a lot about a career until I was at university. Like a lot of people, I think I suddenly realised I was about to finish university and I was going to have to get a job and earn some money. And I think somehow television as this extraordinary storytelling device somehow entered my consciousness really early on, much to my mum's disgust. I mean, she used to get really cross with me, and she used to go around saying, "You'll never get a proper job sitting around watching television all day." And actually, Mum, I'm afraid I did. Yeah, so I always wanted to work in television, but no one would give me a job. It was quite hard. I eventually, after several years of trying, I managed to blag a researcher's job at London Weekend Television. I worked there for a few years, learning the trade. And then Channel 4 came along and I went to work for one of the early independent producers, a company called Diverse. And I absolutely loved the culture. It was small, it was buccaneering, it was kind of, it just felt different from the big corporate businesses that I had been part of. And while I was at Diverse, I met a young Turk, bright young man called Michael Jackson. Just thought he was really one of the brightest people I'd ever met. But he took me on, initially as a consultant, and then when he left to go to the BBC, I kind of inherited his share in the business with two other. Jane Root and Andy Lippman were my other two partners. And we sat down and decided we were going to create a company. It took us about 6 months to come up with the name, but we eventually called it Wall-to-Wall Television. It took us a long time. I mean, it was maybe 10 or 15 years before we had anything that approximated to a hit show. But then once we had one, we ended up doing several. And so we ended up becoming quite a big, popular company. But as the old joke goes, it took us 15 years to become an overnight success. I never really had a formal mentor myself, but I could name you a dozen or more people who at certain points in my life took me under their wing, gave me the benefit of their wisdom, were generous with their ideas and advice. And those people have stayed with me throughout my life. Some of them were giants of the industry, I suppose. Some of them were just people I happened to work with on a particular project. It's just about everyone you meet, everyone you work with has got something to teach you. Every collaboration, there's something to be learned from that, as long as you're prepared to listen. Hire people more talented than you and have the courage to let them get on with it. That's probably the most important lesson, is just delegate. Hire the most talented people you can find. Give them the freedom to express themselves. The most rewarding bit of making TV, I think, is the edit suite. Watching the material come together and sometimes realizing that you had a fight on your hands to make any sense of what you had, but occasionally you realized you had something really wonderful. It's kind of like sculpture, really. You know, you start with this rough block of stone and you end up with something really beautiful, and that's the process that I really loved. And actually, that's probably the only bit of the process I miss. If you make a program like Who Do You Think You Are, which becomes part of the national conversation, it's now in its 18th series, I think. And if you kind of create a show like that, that's kind of, I think, what every television producer dreams of, really. But I guess I'm most proud of the company and the culture. I think Wall-to-Wall was as much about the people who worked there, and indeed still work there, as it was about the programs. We managed to make the company a commercial success, but without ever sacrificing the integrity of the programs and the integrity of what we were doing. And there's a great line from a chap called Hugh Weldon, who was one of the great arts producers at the BBC in the 1960s. And he defined public service broadcasting as making the good popular and making the popular good. And I'd quite like that on my gravestone, to be honest. I think that's a pretty wonderful definition of what everyone should aspire to in television.